Welcome, everybody. It's wonderful to see you back. I hope the conference has been enriching for you and that it's been beneficial so far. Hope everybody had good breakout sessions. Just the ones I popped into, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. So many good things happening. If you are somebody who's not partnering with CalSTRS yet on your Introduction to Teaching class, please, please, please connect with me so I can help connect you to CalSTRS because they've got some great resources. So I know we're going to have a couple more people like popping in because it's happening right now. So if everybody doesn't mind just waiting a minute while we're admitting everybody. Did maybe one or two people want to share what their experience has been like today real quick? Anybody who's willing to unmute for a second? Or maybe share a golden nugget that you got?
My last session about data was incredible. I cannot wait to share this information with my students and my faculty. It was off the chart. I couldn't write fast enough.
Excellent, excellent. Was that from Kathleen and John up from Northern California?
Yes, I told them they need to be at all the legislative meetings to advocate everything they presented today. They were so good. So really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Carol. Anyone else who'd like to share one or two bits about how the day's been going for them so far?
Ditto, Carol. It's been great.
Excellent.
I'm keeping busy jumping into the Zooms, though.
I know. Sorry about that. That is totally like, well, it's like, this is totally grassroots. We didn't have money to buy a platform.
Yeah.
So it's, and I looked into it. I was like, oh, $4,200 a day when I have a budget of zero. How do I come up with $8,000? I'm like,
no,
we're making it work. And people are so kind and so willing to like, you know, accommodate, and I'm helping people who need help with the links. And so, yes, it is definitely, it's like a mental exercise, isn't it?
I got my notes here and following along. And then when I go to, because I thought I'll just register as I go and it'll say join meeting in progress. I'm like, yes.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, you know, our goal was to have no, no Zoom bombers and just really try and keep it clean and moving forward. So thank you for your patience with all of that, for sure.
Hey, good job.
Excellent. Thank you, thank you. And we're only midway, you know, which is so very cool. So let's go ahead and get going because Sasha has a lot to share with us today. Sasha is coming from CTC, the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, and he's going to talk with us. He's coming from the Government Relations area branch or division, and he's going to talk with us about AB 130. And this bill is something that all of us need to really do a deep dive in, because as teacher prep leads, you know, we see the CBEST and CSET piece of this, and that's the first thing we jump onto, but there's really a lot of layers. And so thank you, Sasha, for being here today, and thank you for presenting this to us, allowing us to record it so we can share it on even a broader scale, and just really helping to kind of break apart what is in this AB 130 bill and what does it mean for our teacher preparation programs. So thank you so much for being here today, Sasha.
Oh, thank you, Renee. Thanks for having me. So hi, everyone. Renee introduced me a little bit, but I'll give you a quick rundown of my backstory. So I'm Sasha Horwitz. I'm actually the entire Office of Governmental Relations with the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Before that, I've been working in education policy for, I think, 8-9 years, something like that, and spent a couple of years in the legislature, including on staff in the budget committee. So I've been kind of knee deep in this stuff for years, and hopefully that gives me a nice perch to explain it. So let's get all my buttons working. So what we're looking at is the trailer bill that went with the 21-22 California state budget. Usually there's a trailer bill for each policy area. So this is the TK-12 education trailer bill. You know, there's also a higher education trailer bill, public safety trailer bill, yada, yada, yada. So just to run down the normal process for a budget, in January, the governor proposes what's called the Jan 10 budget. And this is setting the goal for the budget debate that'll take place for the next few months. Then by May 15th of every year, after the legislature has had a chance to weigh in, the governor will release what's called the May revision. And this is where the budget process really kicks into high gear every year. So over the next month, there will be a number of legislative hearings, negotiations behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, off to the sides of the scenes, debating all the little bits of policy that is going to go into the budget based on what has changed since January. By June 30th of, actually, let's say June 15th of every year, the legislature has to pass the budget, or else they don't get paid. That was a proposition that passed in 2010 called Prop 25. It says if the legislature doesn't pass an on-time budget, they stop getting paid. So they always pass an on-time budget. They also find a way to creatively pass an on-time budget and still negotiate the budget after that's passed so that they meet both goals. Then the governor has to sign the budget by June 30th. And any bill, anything included in the budget goes into effect immediately, but basically on July 1st, which is the beginning of the next fiscal year, goes through June 30th of the next year. In this case, what I'm talking about is AB 130, because I said there's some shenanigans that take place. This actually wasn't signed until, it was passed after June 30th and not signed until July 9th. So everything is technically in effect as of July 9th, but for all intents and purposes, it started with the fiscal year. Budgets are big. And so one of my favorite quotes on budgeting is $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money. That is by Senator Everett Dirksen, who, if you've ever been to Capitol in DC, there's a building named after him, one of the Capitol buildings, that is. He may not have actually said this, but he gets credit for it. So reportedly said by Senator Everett Dirksen. So let's break down what the budget looked like. So in a word, this year's state budget was exciting. It was unlike anything we've seen before. Spurred on by surprising increase in state revenues, the state adopted a $262 billion state budget, including an $80 billion surplus, $25 million in reserves, and $15 billion for the state's rainy day fund. The budget and the accompanying education trailer bill, which is AB 130, which is the focus of what I'm talking about today, included substantial investments in teacher recruitment and retention, along with new or extended flexibilities and waivers, and several non-fiscal policy actions, which I'll walk through. The budget included $492 million in one-time funds for the commission to expand or establish grant programs aimed at increasing the number of teachers in California, especially in high-need areas. And these are the grant programs I'm going to run through: teacher residency grant, classified school employee teacher credentialing grant, computer science supplementary authorization grant, and then some smaller ones, dyslexia pedagogy grants, and extra funds for the Center on Teaching Careers. And there's also a number of flexibilities and waivers. So there's a change in some test requirements, which we're describing as COVID testing flexibilities. There's the basic skills or CBEST and subject matter or CSET flexibilities that passed in the state budget that Renee had mentioned earlier. There's also a credential fee waiver that applies to people who are applying for initial documents at the commission, an accreditation fee waiver that applies to accredited institutions that we oversee here at the commission. And then what I understand some of you might be very interested to talk about is the transitional kindergarten expansion. There are also a couple proposals that I'll briefly go into that aren't actually administered by the CTC, but really do fall into our wheelhouse. And that's the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards Incentive and the Golden State Teacher Grant Program. Let's jump into these grant programs.
Sasha, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Will we be able to get your slide deck? Because I have a feeling people might be like feverishly taking notes. And so
I would be happy to share it with you. Renee.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure. So the Teacher Residency Grant Program. This is a $350 million program with funds expendable over 5 years. The program, which supports locally sponsored one-year intensive mentored clinical teacher preparation programs dedicated to preparing and retaining teachers in designated shortage fields in high-need communities. There's also $25 million of the full amount set aside for capacity building grants. And And as you can see here, it also talks about what designated shortage field means, and that LEAs have to match every grant dollar 80 cents to dollar. So for every dollar somebody receives, the LEA would have to put up 80 cents. There's also the Classified School Employee Teacher Credentialing Program. This has $125 million expendable over 5 years. The program provides grants to transitional kindergarten to grade 12 local education agencies to recruit non-certificated school employees. That means not a teacher, but somebody working on the campus, to become certificated, that would be credential holding, classroom teachers. All the person would need to have, in addition to being school staff, is an AA degree at that point. They can also use the grant money toward completing their bachelor's degree. And this would be $24,000 that they would not have to pay back. There's also a $15 million grant program called the Computer Science Supplementary Authorizations Grant, again, available over a 5-year period. And this program would support current teachers with a $25 award so they can earn a supplementary authorization on their credential so they can go ahead and teach computer science. It's targeting 6,000 new computer science authorization holders over 5 years. A smaller grant, there's $2 million for teacher preparation program updates, which you can also summarize as dyslexia pedagogy grants. These are for updating the program curriculum and course offerings to align with the Common Trunk teaching performance assessment expectations and the updated education specialist teaching performance expectations, and to include pedagogy on dyslexia. So these grants will go to teacher preparation programs. And another small grant, there's already something called the Center on Teaching Careers based out of Tulare County Office of Education. And the budget included $1.7 million of money that'll just pass through the commission and goes directly to Tulare County Office of Ed to administer the Center on Teaching Careers. We just have to get that money out by December 1st. All right, that was the big grant programs. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and start talking about the flexibilities and waivers that were included. So these are when the first set of waivers was actually started in March of last year, right at the start of the COVID pandemic. The state adopted temporary testing flexibility for the TPA, which is Teaching Performance Assessment, APA, Administrator Performance Assessment, RICA, Reading Instruction Competency Assessment, CSET, which are the subject matter tests, and CBEST, which are the basic skills exam. First, these were done through an executive order, and then they were extended through the budget, and this is another extension in the budget. These will allow candidates to defer certain testing requirements to a later phase in their preparation due to school site closures or testing center closures and access issues. The adopted budget has extended these dates, which is now potentially for the last time, although again, this pandemic seems to go on and on. So we don't know if something might change, but one thing we did was we made sure we wrote in some language to make it easier to extend these again if we need to, without the state having to pass a law to do so. So right now for performance assessments, the extension applies to candidates through the full 21-22 school year. So that applies to both here. Though those requirements are still required to be completed before somebody goes ahead and earns their clear credential. So effectively within 5 years. Next, the RICA, or the Reading Instruction Competency Assessment. This requirement was suspended, so now it needs to be completed before the clear credential. And this applies to anybody who had trouble taking the RICA between March 19th of 2020 last year through December 31st, 2021 this year. However, and this will be true for the next two as well, the commission itself will be able to extend this deadline another 6 months if people are still having trouble accessing the test because of testing center closures or a burden getting into testing centers due to a backlog, something like that. So that's just to say that they don't need to. We don't need to go to the legislature and ask them to extend this deadline again. If they have trouble completing this requirement by December 31st, the commission alone can extend that through June 30th of next year. So this is for the RECA that would now be required by the time they get their clear credential. For the CBEST, this had been suspended until they begin teaching. This will still be required when they get their preliminary credential, their primary credential. And for the CSET, the subject matter examination for teachers, this requirement will need to be completed when they get their primary credential. And if you have questions about any of these, we do have plenty of information on our website. And I'm also going to, like I said, I will make sure that you have access to this slide deck. So it's easy to reference. Oops, too far down.
Sasha, I have a quick question, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
It seems like with CBEST and CSET, there's flexibilities, and with RECA, it's a date flexibility. Is that correct? Because like it seems like CBEST and CSET, there's other ways that you can qualify.
Right. I'll jump into those.
Awesome.
For what we were talking about, these were just if you didn't have access to the test because of testing center closures or other kinds of access issues. But I'm going to jump right into basic skills and subject matter flexibility right now. So thank you. So the budget agreement also established new pathways for teacher candidates to meet the subject matter and basic skills requirements. These new options allow relevant collegiate level coursework to be used to meet each of the requirements and allows candidates to mix and match from all the available options. AB 130 expands the available options to allow candidates to meet the subject matter requirement through any one of the following methods. Actually, we jump ahead in my notes. We'll talk about basic skills first since we're on that side. So this new option will allow the commission and commission approved preparation programs to verify basic skills proficiency through qualifying coursework that meets the following conditions. The candidate must have earned a letter grade of B or better in qualifying coursework. The coursework must have been taken at a regionally accredited college or university. The coursework must provide 3 semester units or equivalent quarter units. Right now, as written, that quarter unit issue has been a little confusing for some folks because it seems like it's saying that needs to be 4.5 units, which is not what a normal quarter unit system is offering for one course, but we're working on cleaning that up so it'll be much clearer. The coursework will have to be taken for academic credit, so this person would have had to earn units, basically. The coursework must be degree applicable, which includes something that they took toward their AA degree. So AA degree applicable is just fine. And just as the CBEST has 3 subtests in reading, writing, and math, you can think of the new basic skills requirement as having these 3 columns you need to reach. For reading, that applicable coursework is going to be can be in the subjects of critical thinking, literature, philosophy, reading, rhetoric, or textual analysis. For writing, applicable coursework must be in the subjects of composition, English, rhetoric, written communications, or writing. And for mathematics, applicable coursework must be in the subjects of algebra, geometry, mathematics, quantitative reasoning, or statistics. These proposals are almost identical to language that was in a standalone bill, AB 312 by Assemblymember Sayarto. Once the trailer bill version passed, the author pulled it from consideration. And to make things easy for you, here is a link on your screen. Don't worry about writing it down because you will be getting these slides, but that breaks down all of our additional resources in one place. So it's really easy to look into what is needed to apply this for any of your candidates. So switching to subject matter flexibility, this one's a little bit trickier. just because it's not as easy to match subject matter on a one-to-one basis as it is with the basic skills. So these options can be met in one of the following ways. Successful completion of coursework is verified by a commission-approved program of professional preparation that addresses each of the commission-adopted domains of the applicable subject matter requirements. Mouthful, I know. 2, by successful completion of an academic major in the subject the person will be teaching. Some majors make this very easy. Unfortunately, some do not. So for single subject credentials, the major must be in one of the subjects currently offered. So if there is let's give you an easy example. You can have a teaching credential in math. If you majored in math, you're set. There are some where it's a little trickier. So if you majored in advanced biology and you want to get a degree in biology, you're also going to be all set. Biology is in the title. We're not going to have any questions about that. Where things get really hung up is when you get something like history and social science. And I know a lot of you worry about that one. We are working on trying to make that as clear as possible. We will probably need to put together emergency regulations that explain how we can do that. Right now, the way the statute is written, we just don't have the authority to allow somebody with a history major to teach social science. But we're looking into how we can make that, that an option as soon as possible. So I was just breaking down how it applies to single subject credentials. For multiple subject credentials, the major can be in liberal studies, and then it's an easy one-to-one, or an interdisciplinary major that includes coursework in core academic areas. That's a little more confusing. Again, we're working on clarifying that. For education specialist credentials, the major must align with one of the acceptable majors for the multiple subject or the single subject credential. So if you've met one of the requirements for the other two, you've met the requirement, the subject matter requirement for an education specialist credential. The third option is a combination of coursework and the examination options that meet or exceed the domains of the subject matter requirements. So that's the mix and match. So basically, let's say you took the CSAT and you passed 2 of the 3 subtests, but you really struggled with subtest 2. So if you have coursework that is verified that by your preparation program that meets the same domains as the content in subtest 2, then we'll say, okay, by mixing and matching, you've done everything you need to do to pass the subject matter requirement for that subject. So due to the complexity of these changes and the impact they're going to have on commission-approved preparation programs, we'll be enacting emergency regulations, as I said. These were first presented to the commission in April. So if you're really interested in seeing what we were thinking about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, you can go back. Things have changed. And these will be clarifying the requirements for programs to wish to conduct coursework evaluations that are aligned with the subject matter domains. So we know it's complicated. We are working as fast as we can to provide the guidance that we can do legally, that programs can then offer their candidates. And sorry if it's not going as fast as you hope. It's also not going as fast as we hope, but we're trying to get it right. Okay, now let's go to something that's a little easier to digest. The legislature decided that they wanted to provide a credential fee waiver this year. So what they did was they have waived application fees for every candidate's initial application for specified credentials, permits, and documents if they're entering the teacher workforce in 21-22. So what the waiver does not apply to is renewal fees or somebody who's coming back after they already have an initial document. But for anybody coming in for the first time, the state is basically picking up the cost. If you go into our system, it won't charge you. We will just get notified what would have cost you, and the state will reimburse us that amount. This is a long list that includes all the specified documents it applies to. This is word for word what is in the trailer bill, AB 130. I wish they had alphabetized them, but I think they wanted to prioritize certain ones. And so if you're interested in a specific credential, that list is available in the slide deck, in the bill itself, but also it's all set up to automatically apply when somebody's going through our website. Accreditation fee suspension. This is an extension of a suspension that was in place last year. It's a one-year extension, and it applies to the collection of annual accreditation fees by the commission, including standard accreditation review cycle, initial institution or program review, extraordinary accreditation activities, or actual costs related to accreditation activities. So if you normally pay an accreditation fee as a preparation program for 2021, 22, you're not paying it, just like was in place last year. Okay. One of the more exciting inclusions in the budget is the expansion of transitional kindergarten to all 5-year-olds by the year 25-26. This is a program that the commission is, we have a role to play, but this isn't exactly our program. So I'll go into and I'll provide as much information as I can, but bear with me because we're not actually administering this grant. That's being done by the Department of Education. So the law provided additional funding to programs that meet specific conditions, including a minimum school day length, a 24 pupil class size maximum, and specified adult to student ratios, and having at least one credentialed teacher with early childhood education experience, defined as 24 units of early childhood education or child development coursework, professional experience in a preschool classroom setting, or people who hold a commission-issued child development teacher permit. These requirements will not go into effect until August 1st of 2023. And to call them requirements is a little tricky because the way they're actually written, they're not requirements for the teacher to teach transitional kindergarten. They're requirements for the program, for the LEA to receive apportionment, basically to get paid for serving those students. So that's kind of a technical difference that really just has to do with how this has been designed and what they were able to require in terms of credentialing requirements or incentivize in terms of financial requirements. But for all intents and purposes, I can't imagine there would be an LEA that would offer a program like this without receiving the apportionment they would need to actually keep that classroom up and running. And related to transitional kindergarten expansion, the budget allows the commission to convene early childhood education stakeholder group to assess how current transitional kindergarten credentialing requirements are being implemented and how they align with the recently released master plan on early learning and care. This was written with conditional language saying we may convene it, but we're going to do it.
Sasha, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I saw somebody had their hand up. Would you prefer questions at the end of everything?
Yeah, if that's okay. I've got a slide for questions, and
perfect.
Tell me if we're close to the end, but tell me if I'm going too fast. I know I can talk fast.
No, this is great. It's so much information, and so fantastic.
I hope that's a good thing. It's dense.
Oh, it's an absolute good thing. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. So here are a couple non-CTC programs that I just want to give a quick overview for overview of because I think they'd be interested. So first is this National Board of Professional Teaching Standards incentive. This is designed to be an incentive for current teachers to earn national board certification and to work in a high priority school. There is $250 million available. The money goes to the Department of Education. They have it for a 5-year period. $25 million of that is available to cover national board certification fees, for first-time candidates. Any teacher who already has who already has national board certification is eligible for $25,000 if they agree to teach in a high priority school for at least 5 years. Any teacher who works at a high priority school and pursues a National Board for Professional Teaching Standards certification, they're eligible for $2,500 and the $25,000 grant after completing their certification. And the last program I'm going to summarize for you today is the Golden State Teacher Grant Program, which, hold on one quick sec, looking over my information. And well, I've just got a little problem in my notes. Give me one sec. So this slide has the wrong information. It's a duplicate of the last slide with a new title, unfortunately. I'll need to fix that when I share it with you. So the Golden State Teacher Grant is a $500 million grant program. It's being administered by the California Student Aid Commission. And it is, like a lot of the others, I think it's $24,000 available if somebody teaches in a high need school for 4 of 5 years. So it's a way to help people who are interested in becoming a teacher actually afford their teacher credentialing, costs and fees, books, tuition, anything. And then as long as they teach in a high need school for 4 of the last 5 years, they don't have to pay a dollar of it back. We're still looking at some cleanup for language, but this is an expansion of a program that's actually been in place already, and a very large investment in that program. And with that, happy to answer questions to the best of my ability, and I've included my name and contact info if anybody wants to follow up with me afterwards.
This is awesome, Sasha. Thank you so much. I know that Rebecca had a comment in the chat and says, did he say 24 children to 1 teacher, no change in ratios? And I didn't want to respond because I think that is what you said within that one slide, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah, it's I think it's actually, it's 24 to 1, 24 pupils to 1 teacher, but I believe it's 12 to 1 adults. So only one of those adults has to actually be a teacher. It's to allow for a co-teaching model.
Okay, great. So it is breaking down the ratios, but just in a different way, not with 2 fully credentialed or certificated. Okay, perfect. And then Malia, I saw you had your hand up too. Did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
I did. There were so many questions, I think, the whole time. So much information. Thank you so much. I guess the big question that I have is, for all of the grants available, where do we find, like, where on the website do we find the timelines for this? Like, I know who can apply. I know the LEA piece, but I just don't know what the timeline is. Has that been released?
No, we're still working on the RFPs.
Okay.
And when they go out, then they'll be posted on our website or the administering agency's websites. And we will do everything we can to get that information out. For a lot of these grants, the way they actually work is that it's not the teacher or the teacher candidate who's applying, but it's the LEA or the institution that is applying. And then they're usually doing that with people that want the funds. So they, let me think of a good example. So with the classified grant, for example, the LEA is going to apply for the grant funds. And then they're going to then transfer that money to the classified employee who they want to go through and finish their BA and go on to earn a credential.
Yeah, I understood that part. I guess I was just curious because our LEA partners were asking if we knew of a timeline, and I hadn't seen anything, so that's all I was curious. And I'm very new to
Haven't
this.
missed it. It just isn't out yet.
Do you have a rough estimate of timelines?
I think it takes roughly 6 months to put together an RFP. So, so I would think if it's before the end of the year, but I can't guarantee that's the correct answer.
Thank you so much. And the other thing is, when you give out contact information, we probably will reach out. So I may reach out with an email with more information or with more questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, please. If I can't answer it, I will help you find somebody who can.
Thank you so much.
Sasha, did you want me to call on the people, or do you just want them to
I
mute?
think
Or
that would be
okay,
helpful.
cool. Why don't we? I see Eva Acosta's had her hand up. Eva, why don't you go, and then we'll go to Patricia, and then we'll come to Colleen.
Okay, thank you very much. This is fabulous. I'm so excited. You cannot imagine for my students. So my main question, because I work at the community college, I'm already getting emails from students saying, okay, how do I do this? I read that and I'm impressed. Everybody's saying, I read the AB 130. How do I do this? So who's going to have the say? Who's going to be able to sign that document that our students met, like the our area 1, which is our English composition class, our critical thinking, our math class? Is it going to be per college, per system? That's really important for us to know who's going to be able to sign that they met the requirement.
In most cases, it'll be the credentialing program that makes that decision. But our interpretation of these requirements is very broad. And so if they took a community college course that has writing in its name and they earned a B or better, including a B- or better, that's most likely going to be fine. Our interest is not to complicate this process, it's to remove barriers that we're keeping people who could otherwise demonstrate that they know basic skills. They've met the reading, writing, math requirements some other way, get them into the pipeline to become teachers.
That's great. I've been in education now for 40 years, and I've been hoping, I guess praying for something like this for our students, especially our underrepresented students, that this exam has stopped them from even going on because they have a hard time taking exams. So I guess now what's really important for our community colleges is to line up with our CSUs so that they can tell us what courses they're going to accept, so that we can tell the student, this is fact. This is a course that will meet that requirement.
Yeah. So there's a link I included earlier in here that shows you a lot of additional resources on our website. And in that, we've tried to make it as clear as possible what would be acceptable. And again, it's as broad as we can apply the language of the law.
Thank you very much.
Hi. My question is, take my hand down. Clarification again about the additional funding in the pipeline for TK. And it sounds to me like it's children's center permit level teacher for that class of TK, which I'm happy to hear actually, because the TKs that I've observed so far, they're credential teachers, but some of them have no early childhood education experience. So is that clear that, for example, on a typical school system would have a TK classroom, but the teacher did not have to have a California teacher's permit, but a children's center permit would suffice?
The intention is that one of the two adults in that classroom would have the one would have a teaching credential, and the other one would have to have one of those. I'm going to move back to that slide.
One of those would be the children's center permit. Okay,
Right.
that's the part I wasn't quite catching. So the 24 would be with a credential teacher and a children's center permit teacher.
Yes.
Or
combined.
assistant or whatever level they give that person. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Renee, I think you said for me to go next, so I'll just jump in. Hi, Sasha. Thank you. This has been really, really helpful as we've been getting several questions as well. So I just wanted to verify a couple things and then share, just because we have so many community college colleagues here, some of the things that students have been asking to get ahead of it. So B or better, I know some community colleges don't give minuses, but I think the webinar that the CTC did recently, it is B minus will be okay. So I just want to
Yep.
verify B minus is okay.
B minus is okay. So it's pass or credit.
Okay. And then where there's been a lot of confusion is that the media and articles are basically saying you don't have to take the CBEST, you don't have to take the CSET, which is technically correct. But what they're not interpreting is that the requirement is still there. It's just you don't have to, meet it by the CBEST and CSET. So
Yes.
that seems to be what we're spending the most time clarifying for students.
Mhm.
And then I wanted to just check my thinking that theoretically, any student who gets a bachelor's degree should be able to use this flexibility because they would have a transfer level course, maybe not in reading if it wasn't required, but in writing and math. So is that correct thinking?
That's correct thinking. I mean, you can imagine a scenario where somebody got C's all the way through.
Yes, that's true.
But we believe that, and this is a back of the envelope number, but we believe about 90% of people will be able to meet this through a transcript.
Yeah, that's a great point. So what we've told our students is, look, you're not going to do any of this with us. This will all be done when you transfer. But the best thing that you can do right now is get those B's and betters so you have this flexibility for yourself in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Sasha? Oh, it looks like Steve has his hand up.
Yeah, hi everyone, Steve Batista, and I just wanted to chime in. Thank you, Sasha. You do an amazing job. I've listened to several commission meetings, and you do an amazing job, kind of like dissecting all this stuff and making it kind of, being able to understand it. And related to what's happening with the BSR right now is that I am a part of a work group that Marquita has called together with the CSUs and the community colleges to begin talking about operationalizing these things. And what you're talking about, exactly what we're talking about as well, is about being very inclusive, using things that students are already completing as part of their gen ed, written communication, quantitative reasoning, critical thinking, CSU, GE, and bachelor's degrees. And so, yeah, we're trying to work across systems so it's not, so it's very operationalized evenly and not up to each CSU to kind of figure out how to do this in a way. But it takes time because I'm also getting students at the same time who want this, who need it now, but the pieces in place for it to happen for them are just not together. So it's a bit frustrating right now, but hopefully it will get better.
I see Eva's hand is up.
Thank you. I'm sorry, another question. If a student needs to repeat the course, will you count it if they repeat it and get a B the second time around?
So this, I'm going to try to channel our expert on the certification division here. I believe how she explained this was, from our point of view, we would have no issue with that whatsoever. However, it would depend on how it's reported on that student's transcript. So if the student's transcript, for some reason, when they retook a course, did not treat it like the letter grade of B or better, then we wouldn't be able to refer to it. But from our stance, as long as you pass something with a B or better, we would be fine. Yeah. On that note, we had another question that was internal. If somebody took, calculus 1 and didn't score very well, they got a C, but they took calculus 2 and got an A, could calculus 2 count as their math requirement? And the answer is yes, absolutely. You took a math course and it met all the other requirements, and so it's good enough.
Calculus 2 better, calculus B better be good enough or else we'll be in trouble, right? That's great, Sasha. This was so beneficial, and I'm hoping maybe we can invite you back to another event so you can talk with us some more, because it feels like this is the beginning of a conversation with you. This has been incredibly helpful. Everybody wants the slide deck, so like no pressure, but just whenever you get it to me, I'll shoot it out to everybody at the conference.
Go through it and fix that last slide that I noticed was wrong, and then they'll get it from me by tomorrow.
Oh, awesome. And that, that with that slide being off, that was just another example of the humanity of education, and you know what I mean? And just the humanizing piece of it. You know what? I see that Sun Young's hand is up also. So before we transition to our student panel, let's go ahead and have your question. And I think you need to get off. I think you need to unmute.
Yes, sorry. I'm still fairly new to the California. I moved from Canada last year. And so I'm just curious about the co-teaching system that's going to be implemented in the kindergarten, the transitional kindergarten here. I don't know how, is it confirmed, that model?
You're outside of my area of expertise right now. So
Okay.
I can't answer that, unfortunately.
Well,
Yeah,
sorry. Maybe we can ask Phyllis or somebody else who specializes in early care, because I know the first thing I was thinking of when you said that is I go, wow, I wonder if those two teachers are going to be paid the same. Or if it's
you know what, Renee? In Canada, the biggest province, Ontario, actually they implemented this system several years ago, and there has been some studies on that. You know, as you can imagine, like you just asked, right? There is a power relation between that, right? And those different level of education and expertise, right? And then actually, early child educators are actually much better at what they're doing in the kindergarten, so the junior kindergarten and senior kindergarten. So there has been a lot of discussion around that, and then we don't even know if that kind of system will continue in Ontario because of various reasons, like funding is one of them. But because if that system is working or not, that is a huge question. So that's why I was curious that if that is kind of confirmed and decided it's going to be implemented or not. I think before we implement that, we really need to think about pros and cons for that co-modeling.
I really appreciate you saying that. And I think this would be a great, I'll talk to the leads of the early childhood community of practice and see if they can open some space where we can have some conversations and bring in some experts so we can have a deeper understanding, as the plane's being built as they're flying it, as we all deal with. But, all of us are frontline, so it's important for us to be as knowledgeable as possible, because it's confusing for our students. So we don't want to present any more confusion to them. Sasha, this was incredibly helpful. As I said, this is the beginning of us talking with you, but we so appreciate you being at our conference today. That was fantastic, and really good too, because there was a lot to think about, which is so perfect, because now we're going to transition to why we do this. We now have a student panel. Before we do a student panel, actually, we've been doing claps, so I want to give Sasha some claps here today. So thank you so much, Sasha, for being here and being a partner with us. And you just jumped in immediately when I contacted Phyllis and said, hey, what do you think about we add this? And I just appreciate you a lot. So thank you so much, Sasha.
Thank you so much. I was happy to be here, and I hope you all took something helpful away from it.
Excellent.
I now have to go pick up my kid from preschool. So.
Oh, excellent. Well, have a good night, Sasha. Thank you so much. And now with that, I'd like to hand it over to Yadira Arellano. Yadira is the leader of the Los Angeles region of teacher preparation through the Strong Workforce Program. She also is at El Camino College, and she teaches at Rio Hondo College as well. And she is one of my favorite people in the world. And Yadira is one of the best teacher preparation people we have in the state of California. And today she's going to talk with some students. She's going to have them share their experience with us. And we're going to wrap our day hearing student voices and, making sure that we're doing what they need us to do, especially with the shift in pandemic and how everything has gone. So we're going to go now into our panel. I do want to let you guys know that originally we had blocked 15 minutes for end of the day closing session. I will talk in 5 minutes or less. So our panel is going to go till 5:25. And then if anybody needs to exit at any point, we absolutely understand, but we hope that you're able to stay with us. And I promise I will wrap it at 5:30 on the dot, even if I'm talking even if I say 2 words and that's it. So let's hand it over to Yadira Arellano, and she's going to introduce us to our students. And we are thrilled that you are here today. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Renee, for always such a wonderful introduction. Hello, everybody. It's so great to see everybody here. And just like Renee mentioned, I think this is the great way to just tie the conference. Some of the students that you're going to hear today, they were part of Teach or TPP, depending which college they are from. Like Renee mentioned, I do work for 2 colleges. So the students that you're going to see here are from both colleges. But the reason why we wanted to tie it in with the students is because I think a lot of the times we're doing this work, we're bringing the systems together, but sometimes do we make an effort to, hear the student voice and see what they're really going through. So I hope that today you get that from us today. And with that said, I am going to go ahead and have my students introduce a little bit of themselves. And I'm going to go ahead and ask you to turn on your camera. So those students who are here. So thank you, Renee, for the introduction. Again, she mentioned Yadira Arellano. I was an undocumented student. I was a first-gen student. I was an undocumented student. And the time when I graduated, do not count my years. I know it might not look, but we didn't have Dreamers, or we didn't have Dream Act, or the AB 540. So that has been my experience. And so, fast forward now, here I am teaching. And so when we do programs like these are very, very close to my heart. And when I say close to my heart, I do see myself in a lot of these students. And I think that's what makes it possible for the students to kind of connect with me. But I'm going to go ahead and have my students introduce themselves, and we'll go ahead and get started with Uni.
Hi, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Uni. I'm a second-year student here at El Camino College. I'm also first generation, and I'm currently majoring in history. I originally was introduced to teach during my high school years. Luckily, I was able to participate in a dual enrollment program where I was introduced to teach, as well as Professor Arellano. And because of that, I'm currently still trying to figure out what certain particular career goal I have. But I know for certain that I want to go into education. So because of this, I've also been able to join other programs such as the first year experience, the honors transfer program, and I'm even a student ambassador at El Camino College. But I'll go ahead and pass it over now to my sister, Berenice.
Thank you, Uni. My name is Berenice Pagan, and I am a first generation Mexican mother of color in academia. And I am majoring in early childhood education. And I really just want to share that motherhood and that comes before anything else. So that is how I identify myself. I'm going to pass it over to my sister Coretta now.
Thank you, sisters. Hi, everyone. My name is Coretta. I am a senior at El Camino. I'm due to graduate in June with my degree in sign language. I love Miss Arellano. I met her 2 semesters ago in a winter class, and I loved her ever since the class started. She is all of that plus 10 bags of chips. And after that, I wanted to do teaching. So, she'll be like, Coretta, come on, give me your email. I'd be like, oh my God, here we go. But I finally decided to give in and give my email so that I can be a part of this lovely program, as well as EOPNS and CPTP. Just being able to progress and process through each and every level of my education. And Miss Arellano was very much a part of my situation. Thank you.
Thank you, beautiful ladies. So with that, I want to go ahead and ask you, and now that you introduced yourselves to us, I want you guys to tell me a little bit about how did you guys come across Teach, or to some of you, the TPP program at your schools?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I was a part of a dual enrollment program called Career Pathways. And within that program, it was mainly focused to go into like this child development / education pathway. And this is where I took classes with Professor Arellano for around 3 semesters. I began in my junior year of high school. And because of that, I was introduced to Teach, where I was able to utilize the resources such as like the Student Resource Center, as well as the mentors and other staff members there.
Thank you, Uni. And then we'll go ahead and Berenice.
I wanted to share my story that I know a lot of students relate to. When I started at Rio Hondo College, I was about 4 years out of high school. I initially dropped out of high school, and maybe about a month before I enrolled into Rio Hondo College, I got my high school diploma in a matter of a few weeks, you know. So I know a lot of people can relate to that. And so I wasn't directly associated with any programs or any mentorship or anything like that. So once I came to Rio Hondo College, I didn't have much. I just knew that I wanted a degree and I wanted it quick because I had bills to pay. So I went to school all night and worked all day. And I just had that same routine until I started feeling unhappy with myself. And I was originally going to school for business administration. So I started searching, I started asking around, and it wasn't until maybe about, let's say 2 years ago that since I go to Rio Hondo College, I am the teacher preparation pipeline. So that's how I was able to come across Miss Arellano. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, I'm here. I think I want to be a teacher. What do I got to do? And Miss Leah introduced me to all the different mentors that I can pair up with. And she pretty much handed me a paper and said, here, I know you would be great with Miss Arellano. Please do not hesitate to reach out to her. And that opened the floodgate to these endless possibilities. I never had mentorship or anything in that aspect of people who believed in my dreams. And that just opened the door to a different experience in higher education. So yeah. And then I would like to bring it over to Coretta, please.
Thank you. As I stated 2 semesters ago, I got acquainted with Miss Arellano, Professor Arellano, in winter session and began teach. And then this semester we started the mentorship, and whoever paired me with a lovely mentor who teaches special education. And that's very dear to my heart because I have a special needs son as well. So by being able to be involved in teach and the mentorship program helps you navigate just a little bit easier for those who are not connected with anyone. And I've met some of you lovely ladies on here, Bobby and Renee. Hi, ladies. It's a great pleasure to be such in a program connected with all generations, all races, that, there's no color lines. We're here to help one another elevate to the next level so that we all can become great teachers and educators. I'm being persuaded on that teaching side, those benefits of being a teacher, as well as a sign language interpreter. I am able to be a teacher as well. So I'm trying to open my door to many different directions and education levels, but thank you for this opportunity.
Wonderful. And you guys brought up very important things. And I think one of them is realizing the importance of programs and realizing the importance of having them incorporated in the college. And I wanted to ask you all, what specifically, or better yet, what do you wish the education system knew about you as a student?
So for me personally, I just want to briefly touch on my high school experience. So around my sophomore year, I was trying to come out of my own comfort zone, wanting to challenge myself to take another challenging course. However, once I enrolled, this particular teacher wasn't very fond of me. He didn't believe that I would be able to succeed and pass that course. Which ultimately led me dropping out of that specific class. And it really just hurt my own self-confidence and my self-esteem of how I viewed myself. But going into my junior year and coming to El Camino College and being able to meet people who think and look like me, but as well as a first-generation student, having this resourcefulness and having these people support me, it's a lot easier to navigate where I need to go, especially being first generation. You have to be your own self-advocate at times. But besides that, there's also this emotional part of it that I really enjoyed being inside this classroom with Professor Arellano, because I felt like I was able to connect with her. We both shared the same background, had similar experiences, and she was able to bring back that sense of compassion. And she was even passionate in her teaching, which I really enjoyed seeing as a student. And now I'll go ahead and pass it to Berenice.
Thank you so much, Uni. And I just wanted to highlight something that you said, and that was self-advocacy. And I think that's important in our education systems, because I just wanted to share something that I went through, from K through 12. I always knew there was difficulty in the classroom, but I just didn't know what that was. I had parents who didn't graduate even middle school. They didn't have any knowledge in education. They truly didn't feel like education was in the forefront or important. And I know a lot of other first generation college students experience that same background. And so I just always was looked at as, a troublemaker or the class clown. But I think I use that to kind of like help me cope with me not being able to do a lot of these things. Well, going into higher education, once I started Rio Hondo College, I actually had someone who sat down with me, looked at my test scores and said, hey, there's something going on. I think that might be a disability going on there. Let's have you checked. I went to a specialist, and yes, I do have learning disabilities, and I never knew that throughout my whole life. And that's the thing, I didn't find self-advocacy until I came into adulthood, and I said, wait a minute, there's something there. I know I have this disability, but that doesn't mean that I cannot achieve greater and follow my dreams anymore. I just need the right accommodations and to be looked at in more than just that. I would like to be looked at as the whole child, like we do with our students. I think, seeing if we have all the resources that we need, all the tools that we need, if we need anything else, so that we can be able to be the best us once we're sitting down in that class. Because it's not just when we're sitting down in class, there's so much more that goes on. Maybe that child didn't have breakfast, or maybe there was an argument before they even sat down in that chair, it's gonna have them off for the rest of the day. And I think that's what the school system is lacking. So I think that's what I would ask our education system, to look at the student a lot further than just what they see in front of them, because there's so many more elements that make each of our students who they are. And I would like to bring it off to my sister Coretta now.
Thank you, ladies. And they make very good points of being able to cope with just life itself, even outside of school. And for myself, I'm an older student. I'm African-American with a special needs child, single parent. So I have many hats that I'm wearing. I have to make sure that I'm okay before I even get to campus, or before I even get to this Zoom, now that we're in the pandemic, that I'm able to make sure I have study time and, time for my son and time to just be me, and sometimes in school, they just see one thing, one person, one generation, and we are all very different. We all come from different backgrounds, and we all need a little help in different areas of our lives. I think that sometimes even our teachers in this pandemic should be a little more considerate of our situations. And, we're at home all day, and sometimes we really, studying sometimes gets lost from us, because we have to still maintain our home as well, be a student. And even each of us in our own separate homes in our lives, even when we weren't in the pandemic, it was still a great thing, getting from traffic. And, sometimes we may need help, or like my sister Bernice said, we didn't have breakfast that morning because we was trying to get to school on time, or we just didn't have enough gas to make it to school that day. Those things have to become a part of all of our educational needs, because it's very important for us to make it through the semester.
And thank you so much, Coretta. And I want to thank you ladies for being so open with us and sharing your stories and and really letting us know about that. And, you know, that was another thing that we were talking about. And I want to make sure that I point it out because we've had these discussions with the students for quite some time. And I think one of the main things that hasn't been brought up, or that we don't look at it when we're thinking about, you know, how we look at our students. And one of them is our students are parents. They are parents. They're not just students. So they're dealing not only with themselves, with their homework, with the things that they have to do, but they're dealing with everything else that a parent comes with. So taking kids to school, picking them up, maybe the kid's having a tantrum. She has to, you know, the students have to log in 20 minutes and you have a kid who's melting down on the floor. You have a homework, but you have to help your son with the homework. So now you don't have time. So all of these things, and I think I've heard Coretta and then Berenice mentioned this, and I think the last time we had a discussion, one of the main things that we were talking about was how do we make this resource not only for our students but for our parents? How do we connect this like to a parent pathway? How do we make it a pathway that it's inclusive to not just the student who's a traditional student, but a student who's a pathway, like who's a parent and who has kids? And I know that Berenice, you've mentioned, and this has been one of your struggles as well, just like Coretta, but I don't know if you want to have you want to give us a little insight into that. Berenice?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I thought Freda was gonna answer. We are both mamas, that's why. So I know we all struggle with that. I mean, it's so disheartening when you know we had these accommodations to us when it you know they were kind of enforced on the community colleges, like, okay, well, we're still going to continue our courses and let's have them go online and finish their courses in that aspect. So now I'm being asked to go back on campus, and I just got a job and I needed that job. I am teaching now. I'm teaching kindergarten and preschool classes. That's my dream and I'm happy, but my dream is almost like crushed because it's like, okay, now I'm being forced to go back to campus. There are no accommodations for us anymore. I think as a mother, I was able to juggle it all. And it was not easy, but it was still, I was being accommodated. As a student with disability, I am forced to be accommodated, right? I mean, there's laws against me not being accommodated. So that's backing me up. That's, you know, that's backing me up. But how about now, as a student parent, a student parent, how am I going to be accommodated? Well, the community college says, you know, that's not, we're not obligated to accommodate you. I think even if I'm just one student, I know I'm not the only one, but let's just say that there's an excuse. You're the only one and the rest are willing to come back. Well, that's fine, you know, but I think I should still be accommodated. I'm struggling. I got to pay bills, you know, and I know a lot of my other colleagues in my class have that same dilemma. So I think, you know, that's just one of the aspects that we are struggling with. I mean, obviously there was a pandemic and it was very tough for us all, but they struggled to figure it out, right? So I think that if they had the same willingness to help all of their students, parents, students, it doesn't matter, older generations, because there's a lot of older generations that don't get the college experience that they need or the resources that they need. I think they still need guidance and they still need accommodations and they still need that assistance. And that's just one of the struggles that we face, you know, as a parent student. What about yourself, Coretta?
Yeah, thankfully we are still online in the fall, so I'm able to still be at home with my son. But unfortunately, my son has had some issues in the pandemic. So because, you know, everything shut down and he had to shut down as well. So he's got some depression and some other things. And as a mother, that hurts my heart, but I still have to try to get on this Zoom and try to do this homework and stay focused, you know, and try to help him. Today, like, we went to the movies. I was like, okay, we're going to the movies today, you know, and the funny thing is I'm still in my workout clothes. All I did was put on something. I'm like, okay, I didn't have time, but I'm here ready, prepared. And, you know, with him, I'm telling him like, okay, we got to make it home. I got to get to this panel. But as a mother, we have to have on these many hats. And for my church, I sing on a praise team at my church as well. So I have many hats to put on, but I'm thankful that we are still online so that I'm not having to be like, oh my God, what are you gonna do all day? What are you gonna eat all day? And he, but he's my motivator as well. He'd be like, did you do your homework? And I'd be like, who are you? So that helps me as well. And he loves learning sign language with me. So, I teach him signs, and, all my family, they're involved, and they just love that, they get to learn sign language. But, it's also great to have a support system, even in being able to be at home, or even having to go back to campus, Bernice. And if you need a babysitter and I ain't there, girl, I got you.
Wow.
Let me know.
Yadira, could I chime in for 1 second?
Sure.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying here, Greta, because I think about our systems, and I think about like when I was a professor, and if somebody had a childcare emergency, I would be told I couldn't let that child to be in the classroom with their parent. Instead, I had to tell them not to come to school. And we have to have some ways that we accommodate. And I love what Berenice said. We need to have the same willingness.
Right.
There was a willingness during the pandemic, and now people are going, well, let's go back to how it was. Well, maybe we learned some things during the pandemic about what education should be. Instead of just going, let's go back to what it was. Let's find those silver linings of what happened in this last year and figure out what we need to keep doing moving forward. And Berenice's concept of the same willingness, that's huge. That's huge. You guys are saying some great things today. Thank you.
And you know what, Renee, now that you mentioned that, and we were discussing this with the students, because we've had this conversation before, and I want to let you guys all know that these are conversations that also happen in my classroom. I do teach child development, and one of them is the child in the community. And I think a lot of these concepts came up, but one of the ones that we were talking about and we continue to talk about is what has worked for the students right now during the pandemic, what has worked in the classroom. And one of the things that was resonating with a lot of them is, like Uni mentioned, being able, like she mentioned, being able to connect with your professor, to see you that you're just like me, right? To see that we're the same skin color, same struggles. But I think it comes down to humanizing, right? When do, as professors, and I'm talking about myself, how do we humanize ourselves so that our students are open, engaged, and comfortable asking questions? And, and I see it a lot in the classrooms, and I think that's a key component. And I don't know, I'll let Uni talk a little bit, and then we'll go into Berenice.
Well, one thing I'd like to note about that is that I really felt that sense of like being comfortable talking to you was also because of who you were as a person, as well as your background. Once I came and started attending full time at El Camino College, you sort of see this lack of representation, especially when the student population is like the majority are people of color, but then coming into the classroom, the professors that are teaching, and even sometimes the staff, you don't see that representation. You don't really see that representation. But besides that, yeah, in order to feel comfortable, I think it's just like putting yourself out there as a professor and knowing what your experiences were. Were you also first generation? Did you have the same struggles? And making sure that students have their voices heard as well, especially if they are first generation, it's their first time coming into their classroom and they're confused and don't know what to do and like where to navigate or where to go, and what are the next steps to take. Just making sure that you have those resources available where you know what programs they will benefit from within the community college system, as well within the transfer process.
Thank you, Uni. And I don't know if Berenice wants to add to that, or Coretta.
Yeah, I think it's just so awesome. Although I am not very happy with the things that I've gone through in some certain situations at Rio Hondo, I just know that they had to happen so that I can grow and, have that self-advocacy. So I think it was pretty awesome that you shared that, Miss Renee, because that actually, since I'm on my last course, before I graduate with my early childhood education. I just need my hours. Yeah, I just need my hours, and I'm almost, even though I don't want to leave, I love it there. I am so happy with the relationships that I've made and, you know, the things that I've learned. But it just brings back a beautiful memory. I remember, like, I didn't know what I was doing. Sometimes I didn't have a babysitter, and I, you know, mother comes first. I was like, you're coming with me, Brandon, you're coming with me to school. And he would be like so amazed. And I would actually sometimes get kicked out of school, and other times he was there with me while I was taking a test on his iPad or whatever with his earphones. And I thought that was so beautiful. It was just like those classes that allowed me to do that. Guess what? I got A's in all those classes. It was not just one professor, but the other ones that weren't willing to budge, kind of like black and white. That's not the way our life works. We're not, you know, black and white. I think those rules just don't apply anymore. I think that's the biggest thing about being in TPP that I've learned, is that, you know, we are making our voices be heard. And I never knew that before. I never knew that. I just always felt that like imposter syndrome when I was there. But I, you know, once I found Miss Arellano, and I was like, okay, this girl, she believes in me. Okay, I'm gonna believe in myself. And it just made me more unstoppable. And I think that's the thing that that professors and teachers in general, I think education system all around should see. Are we making it possible for our students to succeed, or are we making it impossible? Because the moment they sit down in class, it's either or. It's not, there's no in between. Are we making it possible or impossible? I just thought that was that resonated with me, because I've brought Brandon to school many a times, and half of the times I was told to go right back home, and you know, I just couldn't participate in that day, get credit for that day. And then I've also noticed too that like in my community college, I think since I started getting that confidence and that you know, that self-esteem in me, because I saw other people believe in me, I started resonating with others. And when I would see them struggle, I would let them know about the program, if they were going to be teachers, or I wouldn't let them quit. I remember there was a bunch of times some of my colleagues wanted to quit, and I would just tell them, no, you got this, you know. But that that kind of how do you call it, like that, like not spiral, but like that domino effect started happening. So I started getting positive feedback and started realizing like your dreams can become a reality. So I started sharing that with others, and I think that's very important, because a lot of the times we see the education system and it's just so black and white. So that's why that cycle continues. But if we have more people who believe in us, who look like us, who sound like us, I mean, that's just a domino effect for the rest of us. I always was that shoulder to cry on for my colleagues if they needed help with anything, or if they needed a pencil or paper. I just didn't let them quit. I would just, you know, I don't care if you got an F, try again next time. We can study together. And I think that was that domino effect that Miss Yadira touched me, and she inspired me, and that touch I shared with other people. And I think that's a continuing thing of TPP in Rio Hondo.
Yeah, you guys are getting comments in the chat, just so everybody knows. Like Rebecca said some fascinating things, including like she had a nursing student, and so she got a what is it called, a rocking chair donated, so the student would be nurse needed to. I mean, you know, just so much of what is being said here is just so incredibly relevant.
And you know what, Renee, with that said, and Berenice and Corinne, and I think that's really what we need in the classrooms. And because I think to myself, and like I've told my students before, I am your professor, I am your teacher. Yes, I have a degree, but there's things that I don't know, and I'm not perfect, and I'm learning. So, you know, when we open that square off, when we let the students know, hey, just like you, I'm learning, there's a different level of seeing each other. For example, you know, like they see me for who I am, the real me, the real professor. And we need to, and I feel like that's what needed in the classroom, because I've asked myself, and I sit back and I think, okay, what do our students need? What do they need, and what is missing, right? What's missing? And I think one of the things is they're just scared. I've had students who tell me, Professor, I missed, you know, the assignment. I'm just gonna go ahead and drop the class. And I'm thinking, oh my God, for a class. And so because again, they see me, they think I'm the professor, and if they don't turn it in, that's it, they're done. There's no flexibility, there's no in between. And Berenice mentioned it very eloquently. It's a black and white system, and it's not working. It wasn't working. And we continue to see that in our students. We are in a pandemic right now, and we have had more successful students online because of the flexibility. Now, I am not saying that there is flexibility with everybody, because I know my son's teacher, would mark Omar absent if the dog was barking on the background. And to me, this is again, and I mentioned this because here I am, this teacher that believes that all students should be inclusive. I kind of told my students, if your pets don't make it to the classroom, I'm marking you absent. I've had students who have babies crying on the back of them, who have babies screaming, "Mom, come and clean me, I'm done pooping." Like, this is the real thing. And so we need to be, as instructors or professors, more flexible, more human, and understand that these are students and their parents, and they're going to be struggling. And if we don't show them that we're human, then we continue to have this disparity between the teacher and the student.
Can I say something too?
Absolutely.
That how you said that you're a teacher, you're a professor, but you're also real. You don't bring in, I'm better than you because I'm a professor. I'm better than you because I have a degree. I'm better than you because I stand here and I'm able to teach you. But I'm sure some of us can teach better than some of the professors that we have. We just don't have the degree behind our names. And I believe that sometimes in education that they forget the trials and the tribulations that they went through, or not being able to meet this deadline, or not being able to pay for this book, or not being able to pay for this class. I think sometimes that educators forget those struggles. And because they're there and they're standing, they're like, I'm here now, so I can look lower than you. No. That's not okay. That's not all right. We are on the same level. Yes, you guys are great educators. Yes, you have, when I tell you that I don't know if I want to be a teacher, because it's a lot. It's a lot you have to deal with. You have to deal with people's attitudes. You have to deal with people's whatever they come with, and in between that, you have to be psychologists, counselors. You're just not a teacher, and I totally understand that. And I totally agree that sometimes you just have to fall back and be real. Just be yourself. And I promise you that in your classrooms, the class will be much easier to be ran with. People will be more relaxed and be able to be like, hey, teacher, I'm having a hard time today. I'm not feeling well in my mind, not necessarily in their body. Their mental health may be off and they just may need a break, or let me just be in the class and not participate today. Because there's always, we have to participate, but I don't feel like participating today. My stomach hurt, my kid, like Professor Arellano said, my kid is in a back crying. I have this over here. It could be me, but I still want to be in the class, but I just don't want to participate.
That's such a great point, Coretta, that you mentioned. And I'm going to go ahead and throw you under the bus. When I first met Coretta, and I want to let you all know that Coretta came into my classroom, and when she first saw me, she saw me like, and you are? That's, she rolled her eyes. I clearly remember that first. And I was like, hi, Coretta, yes, have a seat. And she kept on just eyeing me up and down. And every time I would say something about Eric Erickson, she would just look at me and roll her eyes. But then she would kind of look at me like, okay, you have a good point. Go on. And that was my experience with Coretta when she's talking about, and I think about it now and how I know her, but I think that it's her experience and what she was used to in the classroom. So she probably thought the same thing was going to happen to her in my classroom. They become defensive. They come in with the guard up. What are you going to teach me? What do you have to say? And I just wanted to share that about Coretta, because that's how I met her.
I think a lot of our students have been like, they've learned to not trust teachers.
Yep.
And by the time you get to high school and then college, you're just almost like jaded, you know,
Yes.
and then you try something like, okay, I've got an emergency with my baby. This is what's got to happen. I'm still showing up, even if I took
Yes.
the bus to get there or whatever. And they're like, nope. And then it's like you go back. I think about one of my mentors who was a dean for over 30 years of her career. And when she was in her master's degree program, she had something said to her that oh, your paper's not good enough. You should quit. She quit her master's degree program and waited another 10 years before she went back to school. And she ended up running a part of a college for 30 years of her life. So one person making a bad judgment can send somebody on the wrong path. And so this is just, it's everything we do is so important and so imperative.
Absolutely. And with that, I want to bring it up to, you know, because these are students that were in the pipeline. And I want you all to know that these were students who didn't want to give me their email, who kept on looking at me like, oh God, professor, here you go with the teach again. But you know, I did it because I saw them and they needed the support and they needed the guidance. And so with that, it brings me to what do you wish the teacher pipeline would continue to do? And what has been instrumental to your journey being part of the teacher pipeline?
Yeah, just like as everyone else mentioned, just an emphasis on being compassionate and understanding. I think that was one of the main factors that really helped me in my own perspective of myself, and like later on in my like career and like my own personal life, was being understanding, having that compassion, especially if I was ever struggling, I would always come to Professor Arellano for help or even advice. But yeah, just that compassionate area, but as well as being resourceful, because again, as a first generation student, just having her and having her to talk, having her and her being a role model, she was able to provide me with guidance, now being full time on like what steps I should take to go into education, and providing me with other resources and guidelines on like where I should go and what else I can do, and even providing me with this opportunity to speak at this panel, or even further my own career by introducing me to an internship as well.
Thank you.
But yeah, I'll go ahead and pass it back to Berenice.
I agree with you, Uni. I think that what I wish from Teacher Pipeline was that they would have taken me under their wing from the very beginning that I started at Rio Hondo College. And that would have been instrumental. I would have not gone down a major that I was just choosing because I had to do it for the money that I was gonna make. Being a first generation college student, your parents don't really know the fundamentals of like choosing a career, and they just think money. So I know a lot of us struggle with that. So I would have loved for that, sit down. The counselors at my school just kind of like, okay, pick your classes. It wasn't really personable at all. And I know that a lot of people do have that experience, but I just didn't. So I know many other students probably had that same experience. So kind of like, okay, let's get you a degree going, and let's not waste your time here. And that would have been so useful for me from the very beginning. I can't believe I've been here at Rio Hondo for 6 years now, and I had to be there for 4 years until I met my saving grace, and I think that's something that maybe just kind of working their way through the community college, kind of trying to just find us as soon as we get in there and kind of help guide us. That would have been amazing. But other than that heartache, I think that since TPP came into my life, it has just opened the floodgate to these endless possibilities, not only through education, but in careers, different careers that we can see ourselves in. And not only that, I finally have a place where people believe in me and my dreams, and have told me it's okay to fail. I've never had that in my life, and I think that is so funny, because I think when we speak to kids, we tell them it's okay, brush it off, but honestly, that's not what happens in high school or anything like that. We're kind of taught to be this perfect person. And I think that's what has totally changed my mindset and my outview, my look at higher education. I finally feel like I belong here. I finally feel like I'm being heard, I'm being seen, and my thoughts and who I am, I'm valuable. And I would have never thought that before I would have came into TPP and met Miss Arellano and all the other wonderful, amazing mentors.
Oh, thank you, Berenice. Thank you so much. And we'll pass it down to Coretta.
I'm like Berenice and Yuri, you know, just making sure that that we would have gotten a little sooner, you know. But now that we are here, there are the mentors and Miss Ariana pushing us, you know. Even sometimes when you're in that comfortable place, it's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get involved right now. I just want to just watch TV, you know. No, but you know, when you're pushed a little harder, you're motivated a little more. And sometimes we just need that one person to motivate us. Like Renee said, it takes one person to ruin a bunch. And it does, and it also, all you need is one yes. All you need is one yes to push you to the other side after you've gone through many different no's. And you're like, you know what, I am at this point where I just want to give up. But then comes along that one yes. And then you're able to make it through the rest of your journey. And you just always have to remember it. It's all you need is one yes. It doesn't matter how many of the no's you get. All you need is that one yes. And Miss Arellano is that yes.
Okay, so I told them not to make me cry.
I'm literally over here already crying. And everybody who knows me, the fact that it's 5 p.m. and I haven't cried till this minute is impressive. But
yeah,
Coretta, your words are like hitting really hard right now, my friend.
Yeah, I think it's and I I told them we were practicing and we were crying already, but we kept it together. Good job, girls. But one of the things that Coretta brought up, and I think that as a student myself and everything that I've been through, that's what pushes me and that's what motivates me. And that's what pushes me to push them is I never had somebody like me in the college system. And so when I do this work and, you know, when TPP comes together, I think about what would you have needed, Yadira, or what did Yadira, you know, at 19 would have want to hear or would have want to experience. So I'm not gonna cry. So, you know, that's why I feel so passionate. And so when I see the students in my classroom and I see them, I see, you know, Yadira when she was a junior. I see Yadira when she was 20, 25. I see Yadira struggling with her kid. So that motivates me and that pushes me. And that's what makes me push you guys. And so I want you all to know, as we're getting close to end, I am very, very proud of all of you. You all hold a very special place in my heart. Some of you are transferring out and I cannot believe it. I'm sitting here and as I was thinking back right now, uni was the first student in my pathway course when I started teaching at El Camino. And that is going to be already 5 years. And so I got uni when she was a junior, and this is her 2nd year at El Camino already. So I am so proud of you, Uni. I look at you and I think, wow, this is where I started. And then I look at Coretta and I see a lot of myself. I see the hesitance. I saw, you know, everything that had been done and what had been blocked from her. And I saw myself a lot of times. And so I kept on insisting because I knew the person she is, the wonderful, powerful, strong woman she is, the, you know, wonderful mother she is. And she was a phenomenal student, very, very smart, very intelligent. And she just needed somebody to reassure her and remind her of the student that she is. And Berenice, the same thing. I see Berenice and I see myself. I see myself struggling, trying to make ends meet, you know, not having the guidance, taking classes because it's, you know, that's the classes that it's probably going to give me more money. Being the first student to go to college, not knowing what it is. And so, you know, I see her and I see the powerful woman student that she is and the powerful, you know, luchadora that she is. She is very strong, very wielded, and very, very smart. So I am so proud of all of you ladies. And with this, Renee, I will turn it back to you.
Oh my gosh, so much right there. First off, to our panel, let's unmute and clap for real. Okay. So everybody unmute and let's clap for these ladies right now.
Yes.
It's hard to get up and do this, and you guys just did that with grace and honesty and transparency. I know you're at one point in your career right now, but I hope you guys consider becoming faculty.
Yes.
Because we need you. We need your voices. And I love how
we want to cry, Renee. Don't do it.
So bad, Coretta. But there's so much potential, and sometimes our systems do things wrong. And so I'm taking notes going like, a couple of you said we got to do this sooner. So why don't we have a checkoff box on your application that you can say, I might want to be, so we know from the moment you step on the campus, instead of trying to find you. You know, there's barriers that are systematically put up that we need to break down, and we need to figure out how to break them down. So your words today, so incredibly powerful for all of us.
Wait, I have to ask.
Yeah, Sharon.
No, what did you say about a checkbox? You mean to ask what question?
Well, like imagine if you're, like I know one of our colleges, on their form where students apply to go to that community college, there is one little checkbox that says, have you ever thought about being a teacher?
Okay, wait, stop. I had a fight on this 3 years, but I did win, and I have the words, and I know how to. It's easy, and when they feed you this crap, I'm just in a rare form with 4-letter words today. They feed you this crap, you can't do it, and and then other people say, well, what if everyone wants to do it? Then you say, well, teaching is the ultimate, and you wouldn't have all these other professions without a teacher. We do have it. Now, we have it on the application. It says, I have the exact wording. I'm not going to look for it right now, but I have the exact wording, and you should ask, because, you know, also it's an argument, what's the exact wording, but we have it. And then you worry about how you get the information, but it's really important. And so when they tell you can't do it, it's already in the system, the districts, and I know this, and you know how we know this? Remember the grant from Educational Futures, and we got it's right in those instructions. See, I read that stuff because I can't hear, I haven't, but I read. And so I'm telling you, it's there, and everybody should do it, because I mean, there's tons of things you can do with it. It doesn't mean that you can count all these people as in your program, but it sure is a way to get to them. And, you know,
I love it. Sharon, if you wouldn't mind sharing the wording with me, then I can share it on like a broader, if you're okay with that, because
I'm
if
perfect with it.
I mean, think about how many of these students on the panel right now, if we could have just had a little bit earlier.
But you understand, why should this be a 3-year fight? I was saying, you know, you were talking about, let's have some stuff for moms. And I'm going, yeah. And you know what? When I used to teach at a 4-year university and I didn't want in a doctorate program, I had someone who was nursing, and I said, just bring your baby. You can't miss class. You know,
exactly.
We're getting in trouble for it. What is this?
Thank you.
You know what I mean? But okay, so maybe that's an issue and this and that. Maybe someone who doesn't have a baby will feel bad, but that is ridiculous. But what is not ridiculous is the bureaucracy for some bureaucrat to tell you you can't have that. Do you want to be a teacher or a teaching career? We had to have 2, so it's, you know, so people who want a certificate, a paraprofessional, they can also be included. But we have it, and we're obsessed over it, and I'm gonna find it.
I love it, Sharon. Thank you so much. Beautiful. That's what it's about, is finding these good things and then spreading it. If we've got 1 or 2 campuses doing it, why don't we have everybody? Why isn't it part of all of our systems?
But that is a 3-year argument.
Yeah.
And finally, we got someone new in director of admissions. He didn't know he's supposed to tell me no.
Beautiful. You're like, here's the time to make the transition. I also want to make one comment before I wrap for today. A couple comments were made in the chat about Yadira being like a pusher and pushing it on her students. I'm going to flip this a little bit. For everybody who's in child development, it's zona proximal development. It's literally Vygotsky. Vygotskian is what, like, Yadira's being a Vygotskian by pushing you to this uncomfortable place where she knows you have the potential, but you haven't quite got there yet. And so then she pushes you into it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, like I've already just rocked a panel. Like, these are things I never even considered I would do. And so that really goes to the core of Lev Vygotsky and, some of what his concept of is just really getting people to that whole next level of elevation and
But
moving
he's not just, I'm just telling you, for those of you, I've been online for 20 years, so I know when the Department of Ed comes in and they start all this crap of how you have to run your discussion board. And I say, no, it's the zone of proximal development. I don't want it. I want to know what they can do by themselves. So on Monday morning, I do the closure. They don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but I don't like anyone telling me how to run my discussion board. But it's the same thing. It's for adult ed too. You know what? If you have a discussion board and now that everyone's online, and you probably do, you can't make a joke out of it. You have to, and the socially acceptable answers, and they all want to please you. So if you write it all, they're gonna tell. So you have to use, we call it the zipid. You have to do this. And it's,
I love it.
So anyway, so it's not just early childhood. I just thought.
Thank you, Sharon. I love you for your passion. I feel like I'm super passionate, but I never opened it up for any questions. Renee, is there time for that? If anybody else had questions, I apologize.
Absolutely.
I just realized that.
And we will be done at 5:30. We've got 6 minutes. So let's see if we have 1 or 2 questions, then I'll wrap in like 2.
I don't have a question, but I gotta say, the second someone called Yadira a pusher, I thought of Mean Girls, the teacher in Mean Girls. She's a pusher. I'm a pusher.
But I know why I'm pushing them. See, look at Coretta. Coretta didn't even want to join Teach.
Things work out how they're supposed to be sometimes. So any more questions for our panelists, for Yadira, for anybody who's on this part? Okay, thank you so much, Yadira. That was beautiful. And just the ladies and the panelists, fantastic. We look forward. I hope you'll consider coming back again, because we'd love to have you again if you're willing to. That would be really great. Maybe in our COPs or something this year, or maybe with JSPAC, or
Right.
we'll coordinate. We'll come up with a good spot for sure. That was fantastic. So everybody, thank you so much for a beautiful day. I hope this has been effective. We're only midway though. We've got more work to do. Tomorrow I'm meeting with Rosemary first thing in the morning, and we're going to break apart everything that came out of our cross-system activity today. So then we can take that and then build it into the activity that's happening on Friday. I hope you're able to join us on Friday. I know it's an incredibly busy time.
I'm so happy it's not tomorrow, because I have so much to do that I didn't get done today, and I have another day.
It's like working out okay. It's I've never done a 2-day split like this, but I think it's going to be good. So on Friday, so we won't see anybody tomorrow. On Friday, we start again at 9 o'clock in the morning. We only go till 2 in the afternoon. So Friday's going to be a faster day. I'm on for 5 minutes, and then Sarah Neville Morgan, who was on our leadership panel this morning from Department of Education, she's coming in to talk for 25 minutes tomorrow on Friday morning. Sarah's fantastic. If you can be there from 9:05 to 9:30, she's spectacular. We also have 2 different breakout sessions happening on Friday. The first one is 1 hour long. You can learn about Teach California. You can learn about zero textbook cost education pathways. Because that exists. And then you could also learn about EdWest Trust is coming in to do a data equity walk. That these people are fantastic. They're doing that the first session too. After that, we have Tanette Salter coming in from Joint Special Populations to reflect on the silver linings of the pandemic. And what are those pieces that we want to take moving forward? After Tanette wraps, we're going to go straight into a cross-system activity where we're once again going to be looking at what does this look like to do teacher preparation across all these different education systems. We'll come out from that activity, and then Marquita Greneau-Schreier from the CSU system, who was also on our leads panel this morning, she will be coming and speaking with us again on Friday and doing about a 20-minute speech with just her. From there, we'll go to our breakouts, our last breakout for the whole conference, and you've got some great ones. Our very last sessions on Friday, you've got the Commission on Teacher Credentialing is going to be talking about transforming to a competency-based early childhood preparation and licensure. There's a lot going on in ECE. That will be a fantastic session. We also have another session here that is called Beyond CID TMC, Expanding Undergraduate Pathways in Teacher Preparation. That's going to be solid also. Then we have
the one that Steve is doing.
Yeah, that's one that Steve's doing. And these are all at the same time, but we are recording them. Plus, you could always go half and half if you want to. Then the last breakout session that we have available on Friday is about our communities of practice from the California Community College system, and just the impact that that's made to create space in the virtual space together, and kind of what's happened in the past year with that. Then after those breakout sessions, we'll do a quick wrap. and close, and we'll be done. So I hope everybody can join us on Friday. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope it was impactful. That's always the goal. And I'm hoping that you're leaving here, and that I hope that when we wrap, you close off your computer and you still think about what happened today. I hope it was that impactful of a day where it's going to be on your thoughts. So everybody have a fantastic, fantastic night. Get some rest, and we will see you bright and early on Friday morning at 9 a.m. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for being at our Bringing Education Systems Together conference, because we're here to strengthen California's teacher pipeline. So thank you. 5:30 on a Wednesday night, first weeks of school. Appreciate it so much, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you on Friday.
Leave me.